Hello, everyone. It's so nice to have warm bodies in the room again, right? Excellent. Before I start, I want to give a big applause to our simultaneous translator and the ladies in the back who were translating. You are awesome. Thank you so much. I understood everything. So, okay. I have a challenge. I'm trying to make policy interesting. It's usually very boring, but it's utterly, utterly important. So, but before we do the hard work, I'm just gonna warm you up. We will talk a little bit about design. So I'll just lure you in. In order to prepare this presentation, I'm a huge fan of Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, one of the famous Bauhaus teachers. And this is one of my favorite quotes from him, like, design is an attitude. Because it means design is everywhere. It means it's inclusive. Everybody can have an attitude about design. Yes, you can study it, of course. Right? It's about craft your talent. But this is about working together. An attitude is really good salt in the soup. I got a lot of inspiration from this new movie, the new Bauhaus. Disclaimer, I don't get kickbacks to mention it, I just really like it. Also, that movie actually has nothing to do with the new European Bauhaus, but coincidentally they were produced around the same time. So, but this is a documentary about Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, so I'm just going to use it as a framework and just throw some policy numbers in there because we are supposed to train and teach because something historic happened in the last years in Brussels. The culture creative industries got acknowledged as an industry. Da-da, jazz hands. So, before we talk about ecosystems, and I have less fancy infographics about that, I just want to, as a reminder, when we talk about design, mindset, attitude, what actually is design actually is like, well, first of all, it's everywhere. And secondly, really good design actually builds bridges and brings things together. It makes sense, serves, it's helpful. And in order to do that, you need to have a diverse set of tools. You talk with different people, you translate it, you're a traveler. And then you play with materials and shapes, digital hardware, all of it together. So the world is your entire toolbox. So just to explain is because, so I have an art degree, a software engineering degree, and a business degree. So I have a really weird connection in my brain. But going in different worlds, talking with different people just made me really sensitive, finding out the intersections, and that's where the music plays, right? And this is why I like design methodology a lot. Because like out of your nature, you're there to build bridges. Do we feel designy, warm up enough? Okay, cool. So, the European Commission government has defined itself into 14 ecosystems. And since 2019, culture and creative industries is a industrial ecosystem. It's like we're learning new vocabulary here. You know, we have health and electronics, digital, textiles, tourism. Great. Problem? Silos. Because as you like, think about your design work, it's like, of course, so you're in culture creative industries and you have to walk all over there to go to textiles. So they all have their own system. They all have their own transition pathway program. They all have their own pact for skills. But no. This is like how the commission, how the government work. It's like we just label it, we put it in silos. Let them all figure it out on their own. I can guarantee you, they all have the same problems. A little bit of a history lesson for you, because what happened in 2019, the fact that culture creative industries is acknowledged as an industry sector, that took a really long time. Because before that, 2007, what happened between 2007 and 2019? There was a lot of research done. And there was a lot of thinking, and there was a lot of paperwork, but like that's how it is in a huge system like the European government. When I started in Brussels, and I kind of got like thrown into it, so like I started companies, and I was on stage, and there was a member of the European Parliament, and he looked at me, and he said like, you have to come to Brussels, we need people like you. And I was like, where is Brussels? Then he made a joke and said, like, you should do an internship in my office. Back then, I ran a team, a studio in Berlin with 48 people, and just got the Forbes Top EU award. And I took 3 months off and made an internship in Brussels. That was pretty cool. It was very much Legally Blonde, you know, it's like silver shoes and pink handbags and minus the dog. But, you know, that was pretty cool. So after 3 months, I sat down with him and said, he was like, okay, what did you learn? And I'm like, you're so slow. Like, how can you, like, I'm an entrepreneur, like, I'm impact driven. How can you sleep at night? And he told me, look, the whole European government is like a huge ship. There is so much going on in the engines, upstairs, left, right, and center. To change the entire ship just for 1 degree is huge for the ship itself. From the outside, you don't see anything. But for us to adjust takes a long time. If you want to stay in Brussels, adjust your timeline. Think in 10 years intervals. Okay, well, that was 7 years ago, so here we go. Yeah, I'm not going to read all of that, you know, take screenshots. But also to understand, 2022 is actually the year where it starts. 2019 it was announced, 2022, which is this year, right? We are supposed to hit the ground running. So let's train. If you wonder, what do they mean with culture creative industries? Guess what? They found labels for that. So officially there are 11 tiers within the culture creative industries. This was one of the nicest infographics I got. The other ones were just like silos again, so it's a little bit more free-floating. But it's, you know, film and video games, advertising, music, fashion design, television design, book press, architecture, visual arts, performing arts. And of course, then, you know, the musicians say like, yeah, but so we're not allowed to talk with the movie people because we are making music for movies. So how can we bridge the silos? And then the other thing also is like to be aware of is that there are so-called spillovers into other sectors. So at least that's acknowledged, you know, so you have like industrial design. Industrial design is not really culture and creative sectors, but it's close. I know. Who are industrial designers? Let's check the sectors. Okay, good. Do we have music? Music? Movies? Fashion design? Okay. Anyone? Does any one of you do you see yourself in there? Television, radio, architecture. Oh, yeah, cool. Okay, here we go. So you're all floating somewhere there. Okay, design break. So if that kind of feels a little bit confusing and complicated and boring and slow, don't worry, it's because it is. as Laszlo always said, everyone is talented. That means when design is an attitude and when everyone is talented, when we start with that mindset, that also means it doesn't matter how complicated, painful, and boring it is. This is important. This, I mean, policy. Because the job of the bureaucrats in Brussels is to make policy frameworks, with or without you. So decisions will be made. You decide if you're going to go into the room. And yes, you might stumble a little bit or like wear silver high heels or black flat. Doesn't matter. Go into the room. The doors are open. This is just now the beginning. There's a whole set of like new skills to be learned. We need policy officers who understand culture, creative industries. We need to talk with policy people who understand the system, but haven't been in touch with the culture creative industries. So we are talking about creative spillovers. Everything starts with listening, talking, understanding with each other. It might in the beginning sound a little bit like Japanese versus Portuguese. That's why food and events are really good, so we can start, with hand and feet. But yes, this entire system, this policy, governance, until now hasn't really been set up for the culture creative industries in mind. It's not fair, but that's just what it is. And I think when, there's one thing what designers doesn't matter which label you get on your forehead, but when design is an attitude, that also means like you just figure it out, right? A little bit MacGyver style. Sticky tape, spit. Everybody started somewhere. So yeah, you can also do policy, because somebody has to. A little bit. I mean, look at me, right? They haven't kicked me out yet. Also, numbers. This is important. So, if you walk in a room and say okay, culture creative industries should be a part of a local political discussion. Cities development. Design strategies, what we just heard about, biodiversity, shipment design, why do you designers want all of a sudden go into my policy room? That. Numbers. Numbers as argument work really, really well. Do you actually realize that's what happened since 2007 when the Commission just made a lot of research? They actually figured out, oh damn, that industry is really big. And they make money. I mean, look at that. Right? That's impressive. There's growth. There are other industry sectors of those other 13 ones who don't have that growth. I mean, yes, this is pre-COVID, but, we will recover. That's fine. So let's look. Where is Poland? Poland is here, somewhere in the middle. Interesting. Look at Ireland, Spain, Malta, Finland. For inspiration, it's also when things work well or when things don't work well at all, it's very interesting just to look in the system how. Maybe it was an accident, but maybe most of the time it was really strategic policy campaigns. But the fact is just I can tell you the comparison to the other sectors, a growth of 5.1% is massive. Another thing also is, I couldn't find a pretty slide for that, so I'll just tell you. The return of investment per euro in culture creative industry is actually higher than the mobility industry. Yeah, that will make some people upset. Good. Pretty picture. That's the prettiest one I found. So, that was the overall culture creative industries. This is policy. This is set in stone, it will start, it is here to stay, it's locked in. It will happen over and over and over. Now you might wonder, where is that new European Bauhaus thingy actually fitting into all of that? So the new European Bauhaus is a project. It's a campaign. It's set on one foot with the Green Deal, And on the other side, culture, creative industry. So it's a bridge between like the policy, the Green Deal policy, Fit for 55 and stuff like that, and the culture, creative industries. So it's a beginning. It's a narrative. And it is a campaign to start to wheel creative industries in. It's very early. It's the baby of Ursula von der Leyen. So that's why it's a little bit more politics than policy. Because like no matter what happened with New European Bauhaus, Culture Creative Industries, CCSI, new words, CCSI is here to stay. New European Bauhaus is the beginning, it's a campaign. We'll see what happens with that. We'll try our best, right? So at the moment, European Bauhaus strategies are navigated and planned by the European Commission. There is a department, it's called Joint Research Center. Inside the Joint Research Center is a policy lab. In there is a team with 17 people who have been designing the strategy around New European Bauhaus. You know, it's a little bit like you have to know where to go. But they have been designing the strategy. The narrative, the latest project was the announcement of the lighthouse projects, and Poland is inside as well. And also that was the first time for like a bigger budget. So it was like around 25 million, nothing. And quite recently, 3 weeks ago, there was the New European Bauhaus Festival, also organized by the Joint Research Center, which is inside the European Commission. And the interesting thing was, if you wouldn't have known it's New European Bauhaus, and it wouldn't have been said design, 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 if you just would have gone to a panel, you wouldn't have known that it has something to do with design. Because there were a lot of policymakers and a lot of researchers there talking, mainly architecture, because that's phase number 1 for New European Bauhaus. And there weren't a lot of designers, actually the doers, the ones who apply the Bauhaus methodology. And that was, yes, it's beginning and everything, but, I found it really sad. And I have a lot of conversation, and I would love to have a conversation with you, because we're going to a vernissage afterwards, and you will see me at the bar. Also, I expect questions. I'm not going to leave here until there are questions, so get prepared. I hear a lot, when I say, it's why don't you go on stage? Why don't you go on the panels? It's what I'm supposed to say. I'm more like the doer, speaking through my work. Yeah, okay, baby, but we need your mouth and your brain in policy too. Because again, I want to avoid that in 10 years we're sitting here where we have to get upset and complain about the fact that there's so many ill-fitting EU programs and policies out there because we all didn't get involved. And exactly when you start painting a picture, it's never perfect. You have to explore the canvas, you figure out the colors, it's trial and error. Policy is also a little bit like painting a picture. Cool thing is you can do different layers and hide a little bit, And then you just add augmented reality and it's cool anyway. So, just to build the bridge, because my day job is, I'm the director for EU policy affairs. We call it orchestrator, which I find really cool, because policy very much is about trying to bring a lot of instruments together to play in harmony. But this harmony is very nice too, jazz. So here comes the other side. It's so I work for Climate KIC. KIC is Knowledge Innovation Community. And we are part of the EIT, the European Institute of Technology. There are 8 KICs so far. We are the oldest one. We are the most senior. And as the word already says, it's you haven't heard a single design anywhere. Because it's very innovation, fancy word, and very tech-driven. So there was always the focus. And then last week, there was a new KIC, Knowledge Innovation Community, for culture creative industries. Oh yeah. So it's happening now. They have a budget of 600 million. Okay, at least something. And they're getting started now. They will hit the ground running. The consortium just got announced. They will hit the ground running more later in the year. And they're there to disseminate that bucket of money into projects. And they're under huge pressure to hit the ground running. So either though that user interface is not very design welcoming, go through the pain anyway. Go and check out our programs in terms of sustainability, education, workshops. We are certifying for green skills. We have the Young Innovator Program. We have the Climathons. We have the Climate Accelerators. This is EU taxpayers' money. That means it's your money, and you can take it back by using all of our facilities, our programs. And also, we are actually running our own European Bauhaus projects. We were the first one who actually made money available in the context of New European Bauhaus. We have the Ideation Award ceremony, 10,000. We have the Community Booster, 25,000. And the next one is for 50,000. It's for startups. It's for hackathons. The interesting thing, we're actually partnering up with the Joint Research Center, is because we now have to adjust this, because especially in culture creative industries, hackathons, startups, isn't like being an artist like more an individual person? That's fine. And hackathons are more like prototyping sessions. So we are so early that we're actually talking about terminologies, about words, vocabularies. That's why those translating ladies are so important, because I wouldn't have understood a single thing if it wouldn't be in the language I understand, right? So that's exactly in policies, like we are starting to actually tell each other's words, production, interface. Because in the techie innovation world, it means something totally different than in culture creative industries. That's how early we are. Yeah, numbers. Oh, yeah, here, European Bauhaus. Apply now. I couldn't make it bigger. Right? So, you're still kind of like sitting straight, right? Excellent. Okay, I will expect questions in a minute. So, my last favorite quote. I find this really interesting because, like, just to tell you a story, what Laszlo actually did is he did something completely out there. He called a mail company, like company who makes those mail posters, right? And he described via telephone how he wants that picture, and told him the measurement and everything. And then they made him those 3 different blatches, like they're emailed, right? They look really pretty. And the entire art scene was like, but you didn't create it. You didn't even touch them. It was translated by the telephone and somebody else made it for you. Is that art? Sounds familiar, right? You know, in the context, if you're now talking digital animation, artificial intelligence. Laszlo was always about like embrace technology as a tool. Because that's what technology is. It's just another pen. It's a canvas. Technology should never be the solution. The solution is the human. It's the impact. But in order to unlock technology as a tool, you have to make it and see it as your tool and learn it, right? I mean, like a sewing machine used to be a robot and something super technical. Now we don't even think about it, we just use it. a pencil, a roller pen. A roller pen used to be a huge innovation. Also, did you know that roller pens were actually developed for astronauts? Interesting story. And so the way how I read this is like the use of the camera can be translated like the use of artificial intelligence. As well as the pen, that's like the generation before, but I also would like to see like the pen as policy. We've been given access and acknowledgement. They can't get you out of the room now. Be aware of your power. It takes stamina, it takes study, it takes connecting with other people. But hey, you're a designer, so used to pain, right? So, congratulations, you just qualified for the first round. There's a lot of other stuff to study, to learn. Feel free to follow me on social media. I'm everywhere. Climate KIC everywhere. Also, there are 2 more events coming out on the 7th and the 8th of September. There is the Creative Economics Forum in Zurich at the University of Arts, happily curated by me. And then on the 23rd of September in Berlin, Climate KIC will run a European Bauhaus event. Just Google it. Now, I hope I can see you there. There also will be hybrid and digital, but just look, European Bauhaus, in terms of Climate KIC, there is money to be spent. Please take it. Thank you very much. Check out the Creative KIC. There's money to be spent. I know, like, I don't want to argue on money, but like I've noticed it works really well. Money. I like to argue a little bit more on attitude, but here we go. I think I said that before. Design is attitude. And look for culture creative industry strategies. What a wonderful time to be alive, eh? Because I can tell you, all of those little bit bitter design researchers and theorists who've been studying this, making research for the last 30 years, they will all come to you. We've been talking about this for 30 years. Why now? Why do you think you young kids, all of a sudden you think you can make an impact? The answer to that is because we've been given access and acknowledgement. That means money has been allocated. That means the data is there. The timing, that's what has changed. And lastly, and what we are doing now here is like, because designers and art is everywhere. Culture creative industries are everywhere in all of the ecosystems. We at Climate KIC, we see designers and artists as the agents of change. So what would happen if you actually tell the artists and designers, be aware of your power, and then you train them, and then they know what to do, and then you let them start running. Imagine that. Thank you very much. So as warned, I'm not going to leave the stage until I have a question.
Hello, Lisa. Thank you for your lecture. It was really nice to hear such a enthusiastic, show about all those important issues. My name is Monica, and I would like to ask the question about this KIC funds. Is it like funds based like all the European Union donation, or it's something else, like a kind of policy where you have a private partner and then you can evolve the project?
Yeah. So it will be a mix of everything. Also, of course, like with everything related to the EU, some of you might notice that it always comes with the pain of paperwork. So, that's why back-end people and paperwork people are okay. So if you know anyone who has also like, especially in universities, if you know somebody who has been a facilitator for European projects like Horizon, for instance, make them your best friend, invite them for drinks and food because you will really need them. Of course, the advantage of EU money is that you don't have to give up stakes. You can keep your IP. That's the advantage. The Creative KIC, as all of the other KICs, will have a huge variety of programs of how to disseminate money. So you can have like, just like, for instance, what we do with the European Bauhaus awards. So we have like the ideation awards where you just, you put up a short video, submit your idea, and you will get rewarded 10,000 euro, however, half in cash, half in kind. See? Fine print, right? So a lot of programs will be out there. See it not only as like, a cash cow. Being involved in EU projects also means it's a part of the strategy, because the EU is using all of those EU Horizon and KICs activities to kind of like test run policies. So, for instance, in the context of the Erasmus Plus programs, the Blueprint flagship programs are seriously also the blueprint, literally, for EU policies. They contribute. So see it like this, that is one part of actively being involved in decision making.
Hello, Lisa. Thanks for your lecture. I've got a question. As I saw on your slides, the creative industry is doing quite well. It's growing. So why we need to do anything about it? Why we need all of these policies and stuff?
Wonderful question. If I would have flowers, I would give them to you now. 2 points to that. During COVID, we might have noticed that a lot of industries got bailed out and supported. But especially the creative sectors, the musicians, the producers, everyone who had like live engagement whatsoever, they didn't get bailed out. So there is something to be said about lobbyism. That's why it's not only about the money, it's about lobbyism. The steel, the chemical, the mobility, the aviation industries, they've been doing this for a very, very long time. Like in Germany, you still can't find a research paper what is actually happening to the CO2 emission of a car above 100 kilometers an hour. That's lobbyism for you. So in Brussels, for instance, just in Brussels, there are officially registered 30,000 lobbyists, me included. So that's a strategic thing. It's like you care about, because when it goes to high-end decisions and defending you, because culture creative industries is a very, very fragmented industry. You usually, in Europe, you say SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. But with the culture creative industry, you actually have like another S before the first S. So it's like the single, the individuals. And that hasn't been set up in mind yet, unfortunately. And to have a acknowledgement for that it's not only about startups, it's about like the creative craft, the force, the creative force. And to hammer that into the brains of like the very digital innovation industry-driven policy managers, it doesn't mean that policymakers in the Commission are not aware of it or want to stop it. They simply just don't know because they haven't been trained in it. So we kind of have to like train them so they can help us. The other point also is one of the most growing, strongest factors, industries within culture creative industries is actually so-called multimedia. And within multimedia, gaming. Game design is one of the highest growing industries in Europe and worldwide. And the interesting thing is, in the commission, there are different departments, silos, and they're called Director General, DGs. And there is a DG, it's called DG Connect. And they are supposedly, interacting with multimedia and stuff like that. And I said, why have you never engaged with the gaming industry? And the answer was well, because they're too well off. They never needed our help. But the downside of that is the commission has no idea about the gaming industries, what they actually do, how much impact they can have. Imagine if we would connect them as the transition narrators for the Green Deal. Because, design methodologies and design, narratives can be emotional and can actually have really an impact in the behavior of people. So now the commission hasn't done its homework, and they're actually now just starting to look into game design as an industry from a research perspective, so they know how to can implement it in policy. Again, nothing to do with money, it's about influence and power. It's called lobbyism. And I know lobbyism has a really bad connotation usually, but there's always, where there is light, where there is shadow. Lobbyism can be really, really good because it's very important, very influential. And it works especially in Brussels because the amount of staff we have for the European Commission, we are so thinly spread. The burnout rate in the EU bubble is higher than tech startups, I tell you. Because there's so much work to do, people just can't stop thinking. So that's a great opportunity for lobbyism because don't worry, darling, here I have something for you. That's just a nice research paper, let's just do this. The European government runs on a staff count which is 2% of the American government. 2%. That's the staff which runs the European government. Maybe has risen to 2.3 by now, 2.5, right? So just keep that in mind. It's this is not about convincing, this is about helping.
Thank you very much for a very, very inspirational lecture. I would like to ask a question about what you just mentioned, that the creative industries are very defragmented. So a lot of people working in creative studios are just a few people companies. So is there already plans for policies, or what is the politics of it? How to create what you just mentioned as lobbyism, how to unify the industry more and more so that they have a voice on this big political area. And as well, there is very little integration of design in actual industry because there is a lot of very great ideas, projects which are innovative, and if only they could be implemented, but the big industries is still big business and they are expensive usually to implement or even try out. So cooperation between designers and business would be also a very intersectional, very much needed field. But yeah, that would be my question, I guess.
I have to give compliment to the organizers. You are awesome. These are the best questions ever. And if you see my next presentation, I will use your questions as an inspiration to add 5 more slides there. But this is a very, very important question. Thank you very much. So the way how lobbyism style, how it usually works is so you have associations, you have interest groups. So you have on regional level, then on national level, you have this interest group for design or art and culture, for instance. And then all of the nations unite on a European umbrella association. So that's how the system usually works, more or less. But if you look into the automotive industries, so in the well-established industries, just look in the other 13 sectors, how they are organized. Not completely covered, but that's the structure how it works. So I know in culture creative industries, they're so you have the association for museums, for theaters. There's very old style publishing industry is really interesting. I think they need some sunlight in there. There are a lot of spider webs in the corners. But in the mindset of sustainability, it would be really interesting to see what kind of associations are out there, even though they're a little bit old style, and see if you can actually revamp them. And if not, then just set something up. Can be like, start with a Facebook group or like with a hashtag or something, but it's all about unite. National level, or you can cluster on a certain topic. I would always recommend that you unite on a national level on culture creative industries because it follows the structure of the EU. In Germany, for instance, they just started K3D, so it's the German cluster of. So basically, in an ideal situation, this is what Germany is doing now. It's like they have a national association, culture creative industries, which unites all of those sectors. In some sectors, they do have their own interest groups, like for instance, the film industry or the publishing industry. You just bring them in as members. But like that's how Brussels can read you. It's like, okay, we need to talk with they want to have a one-stop shop because they don't have the bandwidth. And even if it's not completely perfect and you don't have all 27 members in there, but at least it's something so on EU level they can call you. Just last week, history has been written. For the very first time ever, there was an association called the European Fashion Association. They just announced that last week for the first time. Can you imagine? We even never had like a functional, fashion council on EU level. Never. There were fragments of that. But like you will now see in all of the clusters in different countries. See, now we're reading data. Where do you get inspiration? Look at the top 5. Because they're very well active and trained in culture creative industries. They usually have a lot of association. The Irish Arts and Design Council is pretty cool. So, look at that. Also, it's totally fine if you want help, reach out to the other associations that like, look, we're sitting here, we're trying to figure this out. Can I do an internship with you? It's kind of like when I started, I don't know, like if you have a Fab Lab, if you have Maker Labs here, but like the whole methodologies of Fab Labs, for instance, is that if you don't have a Maker Lab, a Fab Lab in your city, you actually do an internship at somebody else's Fab Lab in a city, learn how to do that, use the knowledge, and then bring it back into your own town. So there are a lot of fragments there, but they can get united. And again, think on culture creative industry cluster, national level, and then for a European level. On European level, for instance, you have BETA, the Bureau of European Design Association, or you have ECBN, the European Culture Business Network, or you have Creative Europe. Creative Europe is one of those programs. Here, 2007, that was one of the first things, Creative Europe. There was a program built up and it's now in action. Goethe Institute actually runs Creative Flip. Creative Flip runs Creatives Unite. That's one of the first platforms which is actually there to disseminate EU money. Just to put it in relations, I didn't put that money in there. So the Culture Creative KIC has a budget of 600 million. Culture creative industry as a whole strategy has a budget of 19.2 billion euros, which has to be spent by 2027. European associations, go there, talk with them, have a look around what's around you. And then other little nugget also is there are a lot of strategies and programs which not necessarily have to do something with culture creative industries because they haven't been there in the past because they haven't been designed for it in mind. But for instance, with what we have with the Climate KIC, we are actually one of the project managers behind Net Zero Cities. Poland has 5 of them. It just got announced 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, the first 100 cities met in Brussels. So this is a EU mission which cities around Europe pledge to go carbon neutral by 2030. Knowing that we have no idea how to do this. And we all look at each other and now like, okay, we have to figure this out together. That's why you say pledging, not committing. But so in Poland, there are 5 cities I checked, unfortunately not Gdańsk, I'm sorry. But Krakow, Warsaw, Łódź, I think also. Net zero cities, Google it. So there will be a lot of programs coming up in the context of sustainability, net carbon footprint, and all of that. And what we are trying to do now is to create a bridge called Creative Spillovers, where we're going to bring the culture creative industry in partnership with the Creative KIC into these cities programs. Trying to tell the theaters and the galleries and the museums that they actually are adaptation centers. Cultural institutions can be utterly helpful for the green transition. You just have to invite them. So that's also like another hook. Like if you want to, because association structure set up, that takes a while, it's important. 10 years timeline, remember? You're all young, nobody has to sleep. So but if you want to hit the ground running, look at the programs which are in your country, in your regions, in your city, because there are a lot of them outside of culture creative industries, but they're there.
I just got a quick question in regards to what makes Ireland, Spain, Malta, and Finland such fertile ground for large growth, whereas to the contrary, what causes a country like Greece to have contraction as opposed to growth?
That's a really good question. Would be good to find out, right? It's a mixed answer. Every country is a little bit different. One of them is like that the interest group associations are really well structured and really well set up and active. And in Ireland, for instance, it's like they're getting funded with a lot of money from the government, and they have a lot of programs going on. The reason why they can do that is they have a structure, they have a small team, but they know how to talk with government. In Spain and Malta, so this is also like more like the traditional colors, so like theaters and architecture just gets like a lot of money, like the traditional arts. Finland, that is like especially like architecture, building, fine arts. There is a lot traditional through universities, so like through research, and also like kind of like the intertwine between technology, research, and arts. It's far more unsiloed, non-siloed in Finland than like anywhere else. Also, lots of money spent from the governmental side. So like every country is a little bit different. Let me just check the other way around. Greece is just simply structurally wise because the government is like so bureaucratic that they're also on the bottom for a lot of industries too. It's just a structural thing, right? But if you look at it from a European perspective, it's like, how do we get them all together? Because that's like the job of the association. It's like, okay, so how can we get them all together? One of the things is like, okay, we need to unite them in a common challenge. And that's where like the whole sustainability and fight against climate change is like a really good common denominator now, because nobody can say no. Seriously, just look into the countries. Why? How? Who has the association? One of the biggest pains for culture creative industries with Brexit is, for instance, our best creative associations were in the UK. They really had it. So there was Creative UK and Nestea. They were fantastic. On EU level, they were coordinating all of that. They left. So we actually, culture creative industries, we have to build the structure we've lost with the UK, especially for culture creative industries. That's really, really painful.
It's difficult to say that, the UK is out of Europe as a whole because it's still very much integrated into Europe, even if it's not with the European Union or, any of on that official side.
Yeah, so that's the thing is because you have different dancing areas. So you have like, there's things you can do in policy, there are things you can do in politics, and there are things you can do in industries, right? So, and if you just know all of your instruments, so like on the one side, from policy perspective, we are very restricted with the UK because, you know, they can't participate in Horizon. I mean, they can, but they can't benefit. Erasmus Plus, gone. Boris forgot that in his negotiations, didn't matter. But of course, when things like this, when you have one tool doesn't work, what you do, you just use another one. Because there will be, of course, amongst the industries themselves, they will figure it out somehow, a bridge. Like for musicians from the UK to travel quickly to a gig, that has to be figured out. Of course, visas, you know, one thing. But like what we saw, for instance, in research is like a lot of researchers moved to EU outside of the UK in the last years. So we just got the figures in. So there will be like a brain drain going, just especially because research is so dependent on EU money. Policy is not your only solution, right? Again, tools. Sometimes you use a knife for your painting, sometimes a brush, and sometimes you go digital. So it's always, you know, it's always a little bit like a fruit salad. The interesting thing, just as a little nugget, is like from the industry, in the context of culture creative industries, what's now going to happen is the spillover you have here is philanthropy. Because, you know, for instance, tech startups, they have their venture capitalists. The art scene, how did they get money and support? There was always philanthropy. And philanthropy usually comes out of the industry. So there is a whole rise of philanthropic associations who now understand, wait a minute, we are supporting so many artists, we have museums and galleries, and now they've been given policy power. Maybe we can use them. There is a European Association for Philanthropy. They're called Philea. Cool kids. Check them out. But that's also from the industry, that is going to be very, very powerful. Philanthropy through arts and culture as a policy tool. And then they can figure it out on their own. And now it's a lot, right?
Okay, thank you very much then. Lisa Lang, thank you.